Welcome to Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Being a fireman, father, veteran, husband, world record holder, and Ironman, he brings stories of experience to impact your life while challenging you to live it. What do you want from your life? Why do you want it? Are you willing to go through the challenges to get there? If you have the courage to take that first step, let this podcast be the catalyst to start your fire, while you bring the resilience to make it continue to burn. Our lives are made up of moments called right nows. So let's get started. Forged in the Fires podcast with your host, Fireman Rob, begins now.
All right, welcome back to Forged in the Fires podcast. I'm your host, Fireman Rob. Today is a great day to have an individual that's going to inspire you through their perseverance, their mindset, just continues to impress people. His story is not just about his being the first legally blind athlete to play Division I football, but it's a lot more than that. I'm so honored to have you here today, Aaron. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, Rob, thanks for having me. Really excited to get to know each other and have this conversation.
You know, I've seen your story, and it's amazing, but it's so interesting because diving back into everything about your story, it's more than meets the eye, because it's not just being the first legally blind football player at Division I for Tulane University. You've been legally blind in your right eye and partially in your left since you were born, correct?
Yeah, so I was born with no vision in my right eye and very limited in my left, correct.
But you had a lot of vision in your mind. It's amazing. So just to kind of give some people a perspective, and I want you to tell the story about when you carry around these glasses, right? That you had, or goggles that you had for people to actually understand what it was like. That was when you were in college, correct?
Yeah, so when I was younger, I think it was maybe my eye doctor, someone made these goggles that just show how I see and my vision to show others if needed. And I would show them to coaches or teachers growing up, and oftentimes my teammates would want to see them or try them on.
What was their reaction to that once they put them on?
I think a greater understanding of what I was doing and let them kind of realize what my vision was like.
And now you weren't really particular, like you didn't want to be treated any different. How did that help you, or how did that make you feel after somebody saw that difference was there, but you still worked your butt off to get to where you are?
Yeah, I don't think it really made much of a difference. I never wanted to be treated differently. I still don't. And it's obviously in the beginning when you meet someone, they're probably going to treat you differently just because they don't know any better. But, when I outwork everyone in every aspect of everything I'm doing, they quickly learn that I'm willing to do whatever it takes, and they don't treat me differently.
I love that philosophy, because there's so many people out there that are dealing with challenges or dealing with disabilities. To be able to hear from you, like, I just wanted to outwork them. When did that philosophy, from age 3, when you went to ski school, you had that kind of that mindset to be able to push yourself beyond your disability and just be that normal person. Where do you feel like that came from?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of things. Partly, the way my parents raised me, in the sense of they would always rather challenge me than, help me, in the sense of, let's just say I was a little kid and struggling to tie my shoes. They'd rather watch me struggle than, just do it for me. However, it was really in 10th grade when I made a shift, and I said, I don't want to be, a third string junior varsity athlete. I want to play at the highest level possible. And I, found the right position for me. I figured out what I had to do more of to get there, and was willing to, do that.
And when you used to be, what position did you play that you got the concussion when you were a sophomore?
So I've had a few concussions. I think I think I had one freshman year of high school. I think I was a offensive defensive lineman. I had one sophomore year of high school. I was also an offensive defensive lineman.
And did that shift to be able to be a long snapper, did that come kind of post some of those?
No, and to be honest, I might be completely wrong on those dates. I had one. I actually don't think I had two freshman, sophomore year. I think I had one freshman year. And then I think I had my second during college at one point. But no, that had no impact on my decision to switch positions. My decision to switch positions was I want to play Division I football. How can I get there?
I love it. And you took the initiative to go to a camp, which, I mean, from all respects, sounded like it made a difference in your whole life of shifting you into a different mindset. I love your comment when you said, like, your first day that you were there, that you pretty much felt like you were the worst one there. What was it like going to that long snapper camp and taking that initiative yourself?
Yeah, I had practiced a lot and I thought I was going to be really good. And I went in thinking that, and it humbled me really quickly. And through my coach at the time, Chris Rubio, I learned not only how to be a great long snapper, but a lot of life lessons. He taught me how to toe the line between confidence and cocky. I am extremely confident in everything I do, but after that camp, I will never be cocky. I'm not going to step in a room and say I know everything. I'm very confident, and I don't meet many people that are as confident as me. But I also know when I'm wrong. I know when to be humble. I know when to ask for help, that type of stuff. And I think that's a really important skill to have, because people are attracted to confident people in so many areas of life and business and relationships. But if you cross over that line, then it creates an issue. And if you can learn to toe that line and stay on the side of confidence, then it just helps you tremendously.
That's such a huge statement, and Chris, really, there's so many different things that he's said about you, the confidence and just being able. What was it? What were those little things that Chris gave to you when you were trying to say, "Hey, I want to be a Division I long snapper. I want to play in college football"?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was help when I needed it. So many guys would go to his camps and then they'd practice or whatever, and they'd go back and they wouldn't get much better. And look, I don't think I ever annoyed him per se. However, I would
Right.
send him film like a couple times a week being like, "Hey, how's this look? What should I do differently?" And he never once was like, "Hey, can you just freaking wait till the next camp?" I was willing to ask for help. I mean, realistically, probably a little too much, but that's the only reason I made it to, the level I did, because I was willing to ask for help. And then when I did, I think most kids didn't actually reach out to him in the way that I did. And so because I did, because he saw that drive in me and he saw that, look, this could be a unique kid, a unique story, he was willing to help me.
And what was that? What was that feeling like the first time you went on the field to do long snapping, in essence, duties? Because I don't think a lot of people understand, and you're a very humble person for what you have accomplished and what you do. But what is that feeling when you're going on for the first time? Because can you see all the way back, or is it just a feel that you have to snap the ball to the punter?
Yeah, it really depends. I think on punts, it was kind of hard for me to see the punter. On field goals, I could see the holder a little more. However, I would never go off a visual cue like most long snappers did. We had to do a verbal type cue and practice that. So it was just a different feel. I mean, I loved going out every single time I did. It was something that I really enjoyed, and it was a great part of my life.
And it wasn't something that you were just okay at. Coming from the 24/7 Sports, you were rated the number 12 long snapper in the nation and number 19 player in all of Massachusetts. That's not too bad, Aaron. I mean, that you could be not humble about.
No, I appreciate it. Look, I was able to do a lot and accomplish a lot. And, when you really think about it, I started off, like I said, as a sophomore in high school as a third string junior varsity athlete. And that was 2 years later that I made that transition to those stats. But it wasn't because of me. I mean, yes, I put in the work, but it was my parents who drove me to school every day at 5 a.m. It was my, Chris Rubio who would analyze my film. It was a mentor of mine, Steve Burden, who would, push me to my limits. It was my high school coach who, was willing to work with me and allow me to only focus on long snapping. It was the people around me, to be honest with you, that got me there. Yes, I put in the work every day and no one could do the work for me. But if it weren't for those people that I surrounded myself with, I wouldn't have made it to the level I made it to.
I love that, because I watched one of your TEDx, you talked about no one creates success on their own. And just like what you said, that's huge. But for you, this is hard to say, but for you, it was a different thing of you're going for in essence, a goal that would seem impossible to most. Like you can run onto the field, you can't see everybody, and you're like, you know what? Forget all those disabilities or forget all those challenges. I'm going to do this and I'm going to prove it to you. Did your support network constantly give you that idea that, yeah, this is possible? Or were there times where they said, maybe Aaron, let's put these in perspective?
So here's the thing that most people mess up, and I feel that most people have issues with in life and sports and business and relationships in all areas, is they do things based on external motivation. Yeah. And so to me, external motivation is saying, I'm going to do this to prove you wrong. I'm going to do this because you don't think that I can do it. And there are instances where external motivation is great. If I go to the gym and I say, all right, by the end of March, I'm going to squat, X amount of pounds. Every single day, I'm going to go in and for the, whatever, 10 minutes, 15 minutes when I'm squatting during my workout, I'm going to focus on something that pisses me off. I'm going to be angry. I'm going to focus on external motivation to push through those sets and reps because, I don't like squatting. I don't know who does. I do it. I'm good at it, but I don't enjoy it. So that's when external motivation comes into place. Internal motivation is what takes you, the long way. It's, I want to do this because I want to prove myself right. And I use the example of Tom Brady. Everyone thinks that he, was pissed off about being drafted so late. So that's what caused him to be a good player. No, that's probably what helped him win the starting job when Drew Bledsoe got hurt. However, he quickly forgot that. You think that 20 years later, he's thinking of that and that's what's helping him, win so much? Definitely not. No. And it's the same thing with me with football. I was doing it because I wanted to. It's the same thing with me today in business. I'm doing it because I want to. And, the people who achieve the most do it because they want to prove themselves right.
I love that. And you transitioned perfectly from that sports to business. How did you take that, what you had learned being that athlete, being that high level athlete, how did you take that to your business mindset? Because now when you're working with investments, how did you change that mindset from I'm going to be the best at football and be a long snapper to I'm going to be one of the best at investments?
Yeah. So, there's a lot going on that I do today. I'm both in finance. I'm a speaker, other stuff on the horizon. But for me, it's just about getting 1% better every day. What can I do to accomplish my goals? And, obviously due to compliance and stuff, I can't dive too much into the finance stuff. However, it's
come on now.
it's what are those life lessons? And I'm still learning every single day. And I surround myself with mentors and people who are a lot more successful than me in business than, I am. I have extremely audacious revenue goals for 2022, for finance, for speaking, for everything I'm doing. I have those, even bigger goals for 2023, 2024. This year I had certain goals and I blew them out the water and they were freaking amazing. And I'm so happy I hit them, but they are nowhere near where I'm going to hit next year. Like, let's take speaking for an example, because, that's something I obviously can talk more about on this stuff. And so, a few years back, I wasn't a keynote speaker. Like, I had done a lot of speaking. I had been on Good Morning America. I had done a lot of interviews. I had done, events when my coaches had asked me to, and all of that was free. And I got out of school and I went into finance. And after being in finance for a bit, I was like, this is awesome. I'm good at it. However, I want to build something else. And for me, it was, how can I impact more people? How can I make more money? How can I, share my story? It was a combination of all of those things. And I realized I was really good at speaking. And not only could that lead to a revenue stream, but more importantly, I could help others impact their lives and really make a difference. And so I started speaking. And, for me at first, it was like, all right, well, you can't just go from saying you want to speak, having done some stuff, to getting paid a lot of money to stand on stage. That doesn't happen.
Not easy. Yeah.
So it started off like, okay, let's go on a ton of people's podcasts. All right, let's do a ton of free events, for, organizations or whoever, just to get better at it.
Right.
And I did that for a while. And, there was one thing, there was a lot of practicing of, okay, I can speak for 15, 20 minutes, but like eventually when I get to a keynote, like there, and for anyone who wants to be a speaker, I promise you are underestimating how hard it is to go from 15, 20 minutes to a keynote that's 50 to 60 minutes. It is incredibly difficult.
It is. It
And
is.
it's not easy. Let's just put it that way. Um, and so I was doing all of that. During the pandemic, I was like, all right, I'm getting paid some for speaking, but let's add more to my resume. And so I did a lot of TEDx events. Thankfully, most of them were virtual. I did one or two in person. That added more to me. And it took me a while to figure out, like, what is the outreach strategy? How do I actually get attention of these companies, of these events, all that? Once I dialed that in, and honestly, and I'm coming out with some stuff in 2022 around this, but for speaking, I would put my outreach strategy up against anyone's. I use cold outreach, cold email, and it slams. It's something where, like, at some point I'm probably going to try and teach others and stuff, because I have dialed in how to do cold outreach for speaking events. And it's now that it's working. I hit my goal, I surpassed my goals for 2021, and I'm going to, like, 5X them in 2022 now that I have my method. And it goes for anything in life. Like, once you find the method, then it just momentum builds.
That doesn't shock me at all, Aaron, that you busted your butt and figured out the best way to do something to make it successful. That doesn't surprise me one bit.
Thank you.
Make sure you go to www.aarongolub, AARONGOLUB.com. You can find out more definitely about his speaking and everything. When you look at the humbleness that you have, as well as kind of the role model, I'm guessing that is that a hard thing for you to take, being that role model?
No, I think I love helping other people and impacting them, whether it's, for kids, for, students, for adults, whatever it may be. And I'm well aware that I have a long way to go and a lot to learn. And that's why I surround myself with people smarter than me, better than me, pay people to teach me how to get where they are quicker. But, I love using my story and my message to help and impact other people. And at the end of the day, like, that's the goal. Yes, every single person who's an entrepreneur says they're an entrepreneur, they want to make more money. I would be lying to you if I said I didn't want to make a lot of money. I want to. I'll be transparent. However, that is not my number one thing. And I think if that's your number one thing, it's hard for you to achieve a certain level of success. You can get to, partly there, but you're never going to get to be, one of the most successful people. And I don't focus on that. My focus on a day-to-day basis is how can I help and impact others through my work? And that is my main mission. That's my North Star. Everything I'm trying to do is impacting others through my story. And I trust and understand that the process works a certain way, and I will make an absurd amount of money because I'm focused on helping other people.
Right. What is one of your, you've had to have great stories of individuals that have come up to you that you've inspired them to do things from all different age ranges. What's one of your favorites that you've experienced?
Yeah, I think the most inspiring thing for me was I was in college, actually, and a mother reached out to one of my coaches. Her son, had a form of cancer and was losing his vision, was legally blind, and it was decreasing more, and reached out to us. And the coach sat me down. We talked, and we ended up bringing them in. And he and I walked them around the facilities, the stadium, the locker room, the weight room. Spent the afternoon with them, and that was really rewarding, being able to help and impact in that way. That's what it's all about for me. Like, how can I make a difference for those types of individuals? And that was a really important moment for me.
That's huge. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that you don't get to hear from or see that have taken away different things from your stories and also from your determination.
Yeah.
What would you say?
And just going off there real quick, like, anyone listening to this, like, I am super transparent. My email is aaron@aarongolub.com. If I can help you in any way, if I can add value, reach out to me. 99% of people listening to this in the world will never send me an email because they're either afraid to or don't want to or whatever. But for that 1%, just do it. Like, I will respond. It might not be tomorrow, but I will respond.
I love that. That's that personality. You're paying back. It's almost like, you're asking them to send you footage of them snapping every day. Rubio's sitting there going, "This is good. I like this. He's going to get a lot of video." What would be some of the things that, when people are looking at your story? I mean, your story is amazing in itself. What is it that you bring to these corporations, these high schools? What are some of the things that you talk about that really impact the people?
I talk on a bunch of different topics, and I'll go through a few of them now. My biggest keynote is achieving goals through adversity, and that's how do you overcome the obstacles and challenges in front of you to accomplish your goals and create success. I talk a lot on leadership development, diversity, inclusion, and sometimes doing a speech with a company leads to, hey, let's bring him on and do 3 speeches in a year. Or it leads to, hey, can you do consulting with us on leadership development for our new hire class? Or, working with our C-suite on leadership development or stuff like that. So it leads to other things, right, which is really cool and interesting for me as well. And, that's one area that I'm going to be expanding more in the new year is, everyone that I've done, speaking engagements to in the past, I've only done a couple, not a couple at a time of consulting, just because I have so much going on that I didn't want to, do too much. I've been able to work into my schedule more now that I have some more flexibility. And so I will be taking on a few more kind of like consulting clients like that, probably from ones that I've worked with in the past. But, always say that to new people as well.
I love it. I love it. I want to go back to your football days. Because you were an NFL free agent. What did that feel like stepping into that arena and just being able to have that title?
Yeah, so I was training for my pro day and flew out to San Diego for a little bit to train with, legendary kicker John Carney, and had a phenomenal time with him. Really great guy, and got ready for my pro day. And honestly, I did well on my pro day. I snapped very well. I, lifted very well. I did all the drills pretty well. And talked to a couple teams after, and kept in touch with them a little. And there's 32 long snappers in the league. If a guy doesn't get hurt or screw up, there's not an opening. Right. 1 or 2 guys coming every year. It is what it is. Wow. And for me, I had all these other goals and opportunities in the world of business and entrepreneurship, and wanted to take advantage of them. And sorry, I gotta clear my throat a little. Anyways, so I had all these other goals and opportunities in business and entrepreneurship, and I didn't want to be one of those guys who bounced around to 7 teams over the next 4 years. Right. Focus only on that, and then be late to the world of business and entrepreneurship. And I could have done them both, but I'm so happy that I took that pivot and said, I'm going to do something else. And that's what led me to finance. For my first year out of school, I was in a finance role where I was working under other people. I was miserable doing it. I didn't like it. It was not for me. I'm not a 9-to-5 type person. I'm not a
I could have told you that. You should have just called me.
Yep. So I did that for a year, really, I think like 11 months. And it was probably like 6 months into it. I was like, I don't like this. Like, let's figure something else out. Was able to network my way into roles where I'm building my own business now, which gives me the flexibility to build my own business in speaking and everything I'm doing. And, let's see what happens down the road. But I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not an employee. And I learned that pretty quickly.
I love that. I love that. Now I got to go down that path, because what do you think that entrepreneurial mindset, and this is that always that there's a lot of people out there that feel like they're entrepreneurs, but at the same time, they can't really pinpoint those things. Like, let's say 2 things that are keys to making that entrepreneurial mindset a reality. What would you say those 2 things were for you?
I think let's back up for a second and say that most people that think today, everyone out there thinks they're an entrepreneur.
True. True.
And most of those people, 95% of those people, are not entrepreneurs. I'm sorry to say it. I'm sorry to hand that down to all of you. It's sorry to burst your bubble. You're probably not. How willing are you to be disciplined? How willing are you to put up your own money, your own capital? The amount of money I've spent in the past 2 years to make my dreams come true would shock most people. Like, they would, it is what it is. It's what I've had to do to now make money. Are
Right.
you willing to, after your 9 to 5 or on the side, like put in hours every night or in the morning or on the weekend and sacrifice going out to a bar, going out with your friends, whatever. Like, I've built incredible friendships and relationships, but my best friends today are ones who are in the entrepreneurial space that I've built relationships with online. One of my really good friends I met 2.5 years ago at this point, probably, maybe, yeah, 2.5 years ago. And started off as a business relationship. I paid him for consulting, and along the way, I've paid him for other stuff in consulting. But
Right.
we've become very good friends, and that's how a lot of my relationships start nowadays. And it just, are you willing to be disciplined? Are you willing to put up your own money and time? And it just, if you're not, then it's not for you. It's not like you're going to spend $1,000 and create a new business. Now you can, trust me, you can do that. It has happened.
Right.
But for me, I spent a lot of money on consulting. I spent a lot of money on domains, software, video editing. Like, that's it is what it is. And I've made that money back because I've developed a business model that works. But
Right.
I am going to spend more money next year, and I will make more than that. But you got to understand that it's not as easy as you think.
It's a journey. And,
Yep.
and you definitely had that journey. Make sure on Instagram you go to Aaron J. Golub, or go to www.aarongolub.com. It's AARONGOLUB.com. Aaron, I end all my sessions the same way. I'm going to ask you 3 questions.
Let's do it.
I didn't give them to you in advance just because, I probably couldn't make you sweat if I tried.
Honestly, I appreciate that. Whenever someone sends me podcast questions before, I don't even open them, because I think it's more authentic I don't want to know what they are. I'd rather answer in the moment.
Exactly. Actually, I wanted to say this last quote that you had: things happen for you, not to you. I loved that you said that. I think it's so important that people understand that really is your journey.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right. So first question for you: if you could go back to your 18-year-old self and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
Start now. Just start right now. I think, and this is a whole other conversation, we could talk for 30 minutes on this, but the educational system is broken. And
Yep.
I do not regret going to college. For me, it allowed me to play football, allowed me to build connections. I have a lot of friends who are very successful that either didn't go or dropped out. And the issue is college doesn't teach you life skills. I haven't used 99% of what I learned in college today. And I wish when I was 18, on top of college and football, I was like, all right, how do I become a business owner? Whether that have been, hey, like, let's just start an agency, or let's do high ticket sales, or whatever.
Right.
Just, and it doesn't matter if you fail, just like start doing something on your own just to get practice.
I love that. I love that advice. And yeah, definitely, this could be another whole nother conversation with you and I. The second question for you: what is 2 things that people could start doing daily, like a daily habit that can help them to start to move forward, just like you've been doing with that determination? What are 2 daily habits that you suggest for them?
Yeah. So the biggest thing, and I'll break it down into 2, but the overarching thing is do what you say you're going to do. Because if you do what you say you're going to do, eventually you'll trust yourself that you will do them, and you'll get more done. You'll believe that you can. The biggest mistake most people make is they don't wake up on their first alarm. And so most days I do wake up at 5 a.m. However, I don't wake up at 5 because it's cool to do that. Today I woke up at 7. I was on a flight last night, and I got in at like 2 a.m. Of course, I'm not waking up at 5. But if you wake up on your first alarm, you're doing what you said you were going to do. If you push snooze, you're telling your future self, you're telling your dreams that they can wait. And that is not okay to me. Like, if you need to wake up at 9 or 10 tomorrow, then just set your alarm for 9 or 10. If my alarm goes off, I am getting up. But if I think the night before I need more sleep, I will set my alarm later. It's not a big deal. The other thing is just, there's so many things, honestly.
I agree.
I'm a big fan of exercise, of working out, of doing those things. And, for me, it's lifting weights, but it doesn't need to be that for you. It can just be going on a long walk. It can be, doing whatever you can to clear your head. I love walking to the gym in the morning or taking a walk in the afternoon because, it's really when I can think and do some deep work on myself to understand like where am I going in business? When you can learn and in life, when you can learn to enjoy the silence, then you can learn from it, so well. There's so much noise going on in our lives during the days. And, oftentimes you just need a few minutes, 20, 30 minutes, whatever, to go on a walk, meditate, take a long shower, whatever it is for you to think about what are the things that I really need to get done and how am I going to get there?
That's so true. And tomorrow when I set my alarm clock, I'm going to take your advice because I am a chronic hit the snooze kind of guy. And I'm going to take your advice tomorrow. And even if I'm angry when I get up, I will be angry at you. So
perfect. And look, if normally, let's just say you set your alarm for 6 and you snooze it till 6:30, then tomorrow just wake up at 6:30. And then maybe next week, wake up at 6:20. Like just understand that you're not getting up on time and just get up, change the alarm and get up when you say you will.
I love that advice. I love that advice. All right. This last one's always a fun one. All right. So if you're sitting at a firehouse table, so in other words, nothing is off the table to ask or have people answer, and you're having coffee, who would 3 people be that you'd want to have at that coffee table? And they can be deceased or alive. And why would you want to have them there?
Tony Robbins, Ray Dalio, and Tom Brady.
I love that. All right. Who do you think would have the most coffee?
I don't know. It's definitely not going to be Brady. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's true.
One of the other two.
I think Tony Robbins would probably have the most coffee, but that would be a good table because there's a lot of knowledge there.
Yeah,
a lot of
different areas too. Different backgrounds.
By far. Well, Aaron, it's been an honor to have you on here. I wish you the best of luck in all of your adventures this year, and I know that you're going to hit them, and definitely would love to have you back on sometime.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thanks for listening to us today. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening and supporting the Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Remember, don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast, and please share this episode with a friend or family. To find out more about Fireman Rob or reach out about a question, go to www.firemanrob.com. Until next time, live your life forged in the fires.